Alright, so here we are. We're going to cut the seats. I've actually done these other ones, but this seat right here needs to go a little lower, get the valve deeper. And when you're cutting the seats, if you've done a good job, number one, it will seal. Number two, all your valve tips will line up in a plane. So, like this head here, I already did it, but I can't do it because I don't have 3 arms. But if I put a straight edge across there, all the tips of those valves should pretty much be in line with each other. Alright, and that head is actually pretty good. This head, this exhaust, this intake, and this intake are all good. This is sitting proud a little bit, so this valve is actually, seat is higher, so the valve is sitting more up. Alright, so it's not in line with the others. So, like, let's just exaggerate this. Let's say this is where the other ones are. This one's like that. So what we're going to do, let's try not to drop the head. Get the valve out. We're going to use these new weight cutters, which are really nice compared to the Stones. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take some Dykem. Alright, and it's just layout fluid. It's a dye. They actually use it for gunsmithing and things like that. Machinists use this. You could also use a Sharpie. Okay, but the nice thing is this Dykem works really well. Put this over here on the seat, and this will show us where we're cutting. Alright, this is a 3-angle valve job. So we have a 60-degree cutter, 45-degree cutter, and a 30. So this one here is our 60-degree, being the angle of the sides here. Alright, that's the first one we're going to do. And that's going to build the inner taper. You can see where the blue is right here. That is actually the inner taper. Then we'll come back through, I guess this one. And then we will do the 45 degree, I'm sorry, there we go. And then we flip this around and do the 30. And basically that's what this is doing. A 3-angle valve job, if you don't know, is just making a smoother transition for the air and the gas to get in and out of the port. It actually does a pretty decent flow increase and makes the head flow better by reducing the angle that your air has to go, because if not, it's just a flat 45 and it has to, you know, make a harder turn to get in there. So we're trying to get it, you know, like if my finger is the angles here, we're giving it a easier path than if it was just a straight 45. Alright, so I don't think I'll be able to film this all the way, but we will put our mandrel in there. We will get our 60-degree cutter. Alright. And our little spinny tool here that we got has a little spring-loaded handle, so you put tension down on it, and then we just turn it, and that cuts the seat. So I'm going to do that, and do 60, and then I'll come back and I'll do my 45 and 30. Alright, so we've cut the 60-degree bevel, and you can see where it cut with the Dykem on there. Now I'm going to switch over to the 45. And the neat thing about these carbide cutters is they're not sharp to the hand, alright, but they cut material off like there's no tomorrow. I mean, there's metal shavings, boom, and it takes 4 or 5 revolutions and you're done. Alright, so you don't have to go crazy like a stone, and the stone's wearing away and you have to keep redressing the stone. These things don't need to be redressed. These are amazing. So I'm going to cut the 45 now, and we're trying to bring that valve down. This is actually the one that will do that, because if it's up here and you cut down, you're bringing the valve down into the head, and I need to bring it down probably about 0.010 of an inch. So I'm going to cut the angle here, and then I'll come back and we'll just cut the 30 afterwards. And then we'll knock out the mandrel, put the valve in there, and we'll see how it lies. Alright. I don't know if I can get this, but see all the valve tops with the stems. Oh, not on there. There we go. Are lining up. There we go. Alright, as you can see, all the valve tops are now lining up. And I don't have a great way to show this, but when you put a straight edge across the bottom there, all the valve stems now line up. Alright, and you can see in here, try and get the angle correct. There we go. We can see all the angles here if I find something to point with. So right about there, you can see that's the 30. The next one down is the 45. And the next one down here is the 60. So you can see there's 3 different angles on there. The valve only has 1. And there are tricks that people do to these. They will put a 30-degree back cut and take this burr off here, basically. Alright. Theoretically, I guess it does weaken the valve because you're making the head, you know, thinner there and you're putting pressure on it. But we're not going to worry about that on this setup. We are not going for all-out ridiculousness. We just want it to seal. So the next thing we need to do, put a little valve lapping compound on there, lap the valves, check the pattern, and once again we'll put the bluing on there to be able to check the pattern. And then after that we can put the springs in it. So that's what we're doing for this guy. Hopefully that explains if you guys wanted to know what a 3-angle valve job is. If you never heard of it, that's what it basically is. You're putting 3 angles on the seat, and the thing is you got to get the seat heights so that they're all correct, so that when you go to do your valve train geometry making push rods, you're not going to have one that has 20 thousandths clearance that's deeper. You know, you don't want to get one that's like that. That's exaggerated. But that's where it's sitting compared to all the others, because then you're going to have a custom push rod for that one. Or have the adjuster completely way out, and then all your adjustments are out. So anyways, boys and girls, I am going to get to lapping the seats in for this. That way we can start putting this guy back together, so that we can put it in the old buggy over here. And then we can figure out if we're going to do the side draft turbo, or if we're going to keep goofing around with the twin turbo setup. It's working on the 1600. The thing I don't like is I wanted this all to be simple. You know, the KISS keep it simple, stupid idea. And the twin turbo is just not. It is not simple. It is not space effective in the areas under here where it could be all space effective. There's just not much room because the turbos take up a lot of area. There's a lot of area there taken up, and the air filters are down here. So I might just do the side draft because it will all hang out the back. It will be all simple and not so many vacuum lines running around to do stuff. So we have to figure out what we're going to do there and then get on with the project. Alright, so we got done lapping the valves. Here's one right here, be a good one to show, if it will focus. So, valve lapping compound. Right here, if you look, I'll just take the lid off. Alright, it's like a paste. It's a gritty toothpaste consistency, alright? It has a little, it's like a grease oil mixed with little pieces of, grit in there to cut and lap smooth over the two surfaces. Alright, so we did this one here. Whoa, focus, focus. And you can see where that ring is in the center of the valve margin here. There we go. That is where it actually is making contact with the seat. That is the actual pattern it leaves. Alright, and that's about right where you want it. It's right in the center of the margin of the valve here. And you really can't see that so well because it doesn't show up on the camera, but it actually will leave a slight gray pattern on the seat. So when that goes in there, that is now lapped and mated to that seat. Alright, so that guy is now matched with that. If I were to put that one over here, even though the angles are all the same and stuff, it's not going to be a perfect match because we didn't lap it. A lot of brand new heads, when you buy new heads, especially the cheapest ones you can get, are not lapped. Okay, nothing is bolt on ready. That is just a total myth. If you want to find out, buy a set of El Cheapo stock heads, pull the valves out, and find all the garbage underneath them, especially if they're CNC ported of some sort. You will find trash in there. Alright, there's usually some nice little kernels from the milling process back underneath the valve guide there. Anyways, boys and girls, that's what we're doing. Now we're going to put this together. We've already got that guy together. So you'll need a valve spring compressor. I have my old springs that I'm going to use over again. Alright. They're dual springs, which means there is two. There's an inner and an outer. And the theory here is not necessarily more pressure. It does add more pressure. But let's see if we can turn the light on here. Bam. Alright. As you can see here, there's the outer spring right here, the thicker diameter one, and then there's an inner spring, the thinner diameter one. And what will happen is we get to a certain RPM, each motor is going to be a little different, and the valve will actually oscillate. It will actually do a little funky dance. And when it starts to do that, it is no longer able to control the opening and closing of the valve correctly. So what happens is push rod comes, pushes the valve down, it goes down, and then the valve kind of hangs there because it's doing its little dance, and the cam is moved farther and the rocker arm should be coming back. But meanwhile, the spring is doing a little dance and is not moving backwards up. Okay? So what they do is the dual springs, yes, it adds a little more pressure. It does add more tension. But the inner spring is supposed to fit snugly in there and cancel out the vibration, the little dance of the outer spring. That is the real main idea. So there is actually going to be, on a very high quality set, there's actually going to be friction in between the two springs because they will fit tightly together. This is a cheaper set. Alright? The cheaper sets do not fit that tight. Okay? So another way to get around that, because dual springs do add more pressure. More pressure does put more wear on the camshaft and all the valve train components. They have what they call beehive springs, and that's exactly what it means. It looks like a beehive. And when those coils come down, since it's a beehive and they're stacking on top of each other from large to smaller, when they stack, they cancel the vibration of themselves out. They have less spring pressure than a set of dual springs, but there's only so far you can go with that. At some point you do need a bigger, heavier spring. If you're pushing ridiculous lift, like 800 inches of lift, a beehive is not going to work. Alright? They do sell beehive for Volkswagens. There's a guy that sells them. You need custom retainers, and they have to be, I believe, the 3-groove valves like these. 3-groove valves meaning it has 3 grooves that hold the retainer on there. 1, 2, 3. As where this guy here is a single groove retainer. It has one, if I can get a good, one groove there. Alright, right about where my thumb is, there's just one groove. The one groove valve retainer is actually much better at retaining everything. It wedges in there much harder and is a better system for that. But they take different keepers and they take different retainers. So if you were to do a Beehive, I believe the company that makes them, and they're on the Samba if you look, I believe they use a Volkswagen 3-groove valve. Alright, so that kind of limits what you're going to do with it all. But we got this one all together. Alright, I already put a flat edge on there, it's all good and straight. So now we're going to put our other cylinder head together. I've already gone through and lapped everything. Now we're going to put our spring on, compress it with our valve spring compressor. The little hand jobbers that go on the valve and crimp it down, don't use those things. You're going to poke an eye out with that. Alright, chromoly retainers, lighter and stronger than steel, much stronger mostly. The stock ones are just a stamped piece of steel in the shape of a retainer like that. And then we got hardened keepers. Tip about keepers is if you want the maximum gripping power, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to shave down one of the keepers per valve. So there's 2 keepers per valve, and you'll have to shave it down. And what that will do is not let them touch. Right now, the way these are, they will touch, and that is designed in there to let the valve rotate when it's pushing on it. Alright, so when it's rotating like that, it will keep the valve job better because it's mating as it goes around like this, just kind of like how we just lapped it. Alright, so that's how you get 100,000 miles out of your valve job. But with it rotating like that means that you're not gripping this very secure. So the way to get around that is you grind one keeper down, keep the other one the same size, not crazy, but you just need to get a couple of thousandths. And when it goes in there, it will fully bottom out in these grooves. When it fully bottoms out in the grooves, it's gripping on it as tight as it can. Alright? The only downside is now the whole spring and everything else has to rotate to be able to rotate the valve, causing a little more wear on the valve seat because it's not going to rotate and your valve job may not last as long. So anyways, boys and girls, I am going to go and get these put in. Yes, the little bitty bit broke off, alright? And if you look here, this is maybe 1.5 mil. When you cut it for dual springs, you have maybe 1.5 millimeters of boss out here. Alright? I've seen them broke off and I've seen them go really far. Is it ideal? No. Will it not work? No. Alright? We are not getting that much support out of that in all reality. But sometimes when you go to cut them, they just are a little brittle there and they will chip. Alright? We've already cut in clearance here. Stock, these guides come up a little higher, and these are cut down for clearance for the retainer for higher lift on the camshaft. So you don't have that wedge effect anyways against the boss that would have been stock. Alright. So I'm going to put these together. You guys get out there and get your projects done. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.